So when we're sourcing for a strategic buy, what do we need to consider? Well, there's lots of things to consider, but some are more important than others. So let's look at it. So we have a funnel. So we have all our potential suppliers. Then we're going to start evaluating them. And then we're going to approve a small number of them. Because when we're evaluating them, maybe we evaluate some and we disqualify some. So that's going to give us a smaller number. And then we're going to pick which ones we're going to go from there. We might do a bid process to see which ones can give us the best price and service and every other aspect. We might try some other methods to get that. But then once we pick one, or two, or three, or five, whatever the number is, we need to monitor their performance. And so we go from all potential suppliers to our suppliers of choice, meaning we've evaluated them. These are the ones we choose. And just because we chose them doesn't mean that they will stay chosen. When we reevaluate down the line, we might eliminate these companies, and other companies that we eliminated might become a supplier of choice. So this is a process that we'll do every time when we're sourcing. And sometimes we'll just do it every so often just to do it, to see if we got the best company for the job. So how do we get this information to evaluate our suppliers? Well, we can talk to our current suppliers. The supply industry is kind of small. People know what's going on in other companies. They might not know all the details, but they know a little bit about what's going on, and you can ask. You can ask your supplier and say, hey, what's going on at ABC Toy Company? And they'll tell you if they know. We can also access some purchasing databases. So this is where your industry associations come in handy, because there's databases you can access. And sometimes there's other databases you can purchase the access to, and there's more information that could help you out. You can also use your previous experience. Maybe you're already using one company for another product, and now you want to consider them for sourcing for another product. Well, what's the previous experience? Or maybe you used them in the past but no longer needed that product, so you no longer needed that supplier, and now you're looking at them again for a different product. Well, what was the experience? Were they good? Were they bad? Ask people. Your personal contacts. So once again, your industry associations, go to the meetings. Go to those industry association meetings and talk to people, network. You'll get a lot of information. Purchasing consortiums. So these are just larger associations where you can pool your purchases together and do one purchase and maybe get better pricing. So if you need 10, but the minimum order is 100, a purchasing consortium might be, well, they'll bring people together so they can meet that minimum order quantity. And then when it comes down to it, you only pay for 10, but you might get a better price. Rather than purchasing 100 yourself, you might get a better price. Directories. You can think of maybe Google as a directory. Just type in what you're looking for. If you're looking for steel ingots, type it in, see what comes up. And that could be some information. Google is very powerful when it comes to information. Trade publications. A lot of trades have their own publication. And look at this. See what's in there. Is there a story about a potential supplier that you're considering in there? Is the story good? Is it bad? Is it indifferent? Are they talking about a new product they have or new service they do? This is information that can help you. And then finally, talk to those sales representatives of the company. They're going to give you the marketing pitch, but you can learn a lot. And if they're serious about becoming your supplier, they'll give you the information you're looking for. But be careful with that information, because it might be altered to look better than it is. There's certain accounting practices that can make people look better than they are financially, which are perfectly legal, but when you look at it, you're kind of like, this doesn't make sense, or this doesn't look right. Well, Have your own accounting folks take a look at it, and you'll see. They'll be able to tell exactly what's going on. So what are some other sources of supplier information that you can think of? If you know some, go ahead and write them down, or just keep them in your head, because when you get out there and you're doing this job, well, you can think of these and the ones you come up with. So what's the supplier selection process? So we start off with the universe of potential suppliers. That's everybody that's out there. Are you going to be able to evaluate everybody? I hope not, because that'd be way too much work, right? So you might use some criteria such as, we want to source domestically, right? So you might think, okay, we're going to narrow it down to the United States. But, so we're taking it from the 100, which is we need to shorten this long list of suppliers. This universe we need to shrink down. So we need to collect information from our suppliers, and some of them will not respond. So you can put out a request for information once you come up with your short list. Like I said, you want to use domestic suppliers. Well, if they're not domestic, you can completely ignore them. And then you send out those requests for information, RFIs. And on these RFIs, you want it to be thorough, but don't make it 200 pages long or 200 questions. Get the information that is going to be valuable in your evaluation. So let's say 58% only of your short list actually replied. Well, you've already knocked off 42%. You're narrowing it down, right? And then let's say only 23 gave you all the information that you needed. Well, you can compare those 23, the remaining 23%, or the 23% out of the remaining 58, and then evaluate that. Take a look. And you might want to also look at the ones that were right on the edge. Because if they're on the edge, maybe there's something that knocked them out, but if you take a closer look under like doing a visit and auditing your potential suppliers, that might bring them back into the suppliers of choice category. But we need to, once we do those visits and audits, now we can actually make that suppliers of choice list that we can move forward with. So when we're selecting suppliers, we have a huge list of things that we can consider. The price of what we want, the item that we're looking for, the pricing. Most people will think of pricing first. But what about quality? The quality of the item. Are you willing to pay a little bit more to get a higher quality? Well, talk to your engineers or whoever wants this item and ask them. Are they willing to save a little bit of money for maybe a percentage or two less in quality? They should be able to tell you yes or no. Delivery costs. Sometimes if you order it over a certain amount, a company will include delivery for free, but some won't quote delivery. But then when you go to order it, then they tack on a delivery charge, and then a shipping and handling charge, and all this other stuff on top of it. So make sure that your price that you're quoted includes delivery. What about the technical capability of your supplier? Are they even able to make it? And then you can see these other ones on the screen here. We have responsiveness, financial stability, cost structure, reach and scalability, management strength, and cultural fit. We have all these different categories that we can use to evaluate our suppliers, potential suppliers. So these are just 10 categories. Well, is there some that you think should be on this list? I'm pretty sure that you can think of some others that should be up here. So we need to get the contract signed. We need to define the deal. So we can do that in a couple ways. So we can do competitive bidding. So this is a formal process of bidding. And then we select the supplier that meets our needs. So we need to evaluate the bids and make sure we compare the bids properly. So we compare apples to apples, not apples to oranges. Reverse auctions. So this is essentially the opposite of an auction. They're bidding down. So they can see what other suppliers are bidding, and they may say, okay, well, supplier A bid $1,000, but I can do it for $980. And then you might have another supplier say, well, I can do $975. And then maybe that original supplier said, well, we really could do it for $950. And you see how this is going? It's going down. Sooner or later, people are going to drop out because they can't do it for less than the bid has. They won't make any money off their lowest bid that's up now. And then negotiation. This is the most expensive because you need to have your people negotiate, to actually talk. So you're actually going back and forth trying to get the best deal. And this is better when it's more complex. Like, for example, a new building. Let's say you're trying to get your new corporate headquarters built. Well, negotiation on pricing is huge, but you're not just negotiating price. What about all the services? Most commercial buildings don't offer a warranty on the work. You might be able to negotiate that, hey, we want a 5-year builder's warranty on your work. And that can be negotiated. They might charge more because it's 5 years, but they might say, well, we won't do 5 years, but we can offer 1 year free of charge. Well, if you didn't ask for it, you didn't know you could get it. So negotiating is great. So once you get down through all this, you get it on paper and you get a contract signed. But make sure your contract goes through whatever legal reviewers are there. It probably needs to go through maybe an executive management or whatnot, but make sure it's reviewed properly. And then how do we actually compare these? Well, we can do the multi-criteria analysis where we put weights on certain categories. But then we also have targets. So this is what's going to make us decide what is a 5 out of 5 or what is a 1 out of 5 or what is our ideal result that we'll get. Well, all of this is right there in the targets. So for quality, they want 650 parts per million. Well, if they meet that or not, you would rate them accordingly. If the customer satisfaction that you want a rating of 5, well, if it's less than that, you would mark them down. If it's higher than that, you would probably give them the maximum score. So you see how this multi-criteria analysis can really help you. And sometimes it's called a scorecard, but however you want to do it, this is one of the best ways to do it. So this was the end of this video for you. Next, we're going to talk about the multi-criteria analysis that I mentioned. And we'll dive a little deeper into this. All right, let's move on to the next video.